Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of School of Hard Thoughts podcast. This is episode number 21.
21 is my favorite
Oh
number.
my gosh, it's a good. It's able to drink now.
Yeah,
Our podcast can finally
is
drink
old
with
enough
us.
to drink.
Oh, I'm sure laws stopped that before.
Oh my gosh.
I just drank in multiples of 7.
Nice. So, welcome to the podcast. I'm Adrian Davis, and as always, we're coming to you from Famous Sam's on Gulf Links and Cole in Tucson, Arizona, 7129 East Gulf Links Road, the best place to watch sports, especially now if you're a Raiders fan. You're going to get diva-ass, punk-ass Antonio Brown. Now, I can't call him a punk. I can't call him a punk. He works hard.
Don't you have a couple of his jerseys?
Shit, let's not talk about
Oh no, that's
this $900 worth of jerseys
Oh
that
my
I've got
gosh.
to fucking get rid of.
I'm Green Kaywood, and it's good to see you guys again. Thank you for.
Do you have the KonMari, your jerseys? Is that?
That's right.
Do they spark joy?
He's going to condo them. And this is Aaron Haworth, our first repeat guest, I think.
Hey, welcome back.
Yes,
Aaron. Welcome
yes.
back.
Yeah, welcome back. Your dreams are your ticket out.
And of course, we want to send a special thank you to our two newest patrons on Patreon, Alyssa
Bradley.
Yes, Alyssa, thank you so much. We got some special content coming up just for you. And then there's this dude named Mark Holly. Mark Holly, we love you, man, but we're definitely gonna have some special content for you. We gotta get you on the show.
We're going to have the Giants have a winning season for him.
Yeah, right. That'd be the best gift ever.
I know,
I
right?
think he'd increase his pledge.
Do you think if we did like some free advertisement for Casper mattresses, they'd sponsor you too now?
No,
Oh,
they wouldn't. But we're not free advertising for anybody.
No, except for the people who let us occupy all this space over here. So we have some stuff to talk about, as always. And we can get started at the beginning, because that's usually the best place to start. Air travel. We all do it. We all love it.
I just finished doing a bunch of air travel.
Why?
Well, my wife and I went on our honeymoon finally. So
Nice.
we flew to Miami. We spent a couple days in Miami. After Miami, we got onto a ship. We were reminded several times to stop calling it a fucking boat.
Oh, it's not a boat.
Boats or submarines? Harkening back to our last.
Ooh,
I know, right? I
nice
knew that was coming.
callback.
I knew that was coming.
I mean, you're a professional around
I
here.
kind of set you up for that when I was hoping you would tee it off. Yeah, so we got into
Might have been a
a
little
ship
slice.
and went down to the Bahamas and spent the day in the Bahamas on the beach and drank a lot. And then we went to Coco Cay, which was kind of disappointing. But then we came back on the ship and drank more and had
So
fun.
wait, where is Coco Cay?
Coco Cay,
And for the
It's-
uninitiated, these are K-E-Y, right? Is that this?
No,
Is
it's
it
actually
Key, or is it
it's CAY.
okay.
Yeah, it's an artificial island that was built by the cruise line Royal Caribbean, and it's in the.
So we're already off to a bad start.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why it was, because it's just. I don't know if it was built by them or just adopted and then they built on it. But there's like water slides for kids, and there's little shops, and there's places to go scuba diving, and places to do snorkeling and stuff like that. But the weather was so choppy.
Oh, no.
And it's because it's not a real land. It's not a really large landmass that we couldn't do any. We really couldn't do.
I'm just envisioning this like hotel baron out on a ship being like, you know what? There is nothing but water here. This is a waste of real estate. We need to shore up some cash around here.
So, let's go do this fire thing. While we're do the fire festival and that. Yeah, great. Sounds like the perfect spot.
Yeah, we did that, and then we flew back yesterday, which was a little bit arduous and long, just because we took American there, which was okay. It made sense. It's like Tucson to DFW to Miami. So 2 medium length flights. Now, we flew Delta back, and if you fly Delta on the East Coast, you're going to Hartsfield. Period.
No matter what.
So we flew Miami to Atlanta, for absolutely no reason.
That's their hub. That's their hub. They had
Exactly.
To, they had to, they had to fill up all the cargo.
And then, right, and then from Atlanta to Tucson, which was
That's a long ass
almost
flight.
a 4-hour flight. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and even though it was probably about the same amount of flying time, it was just really, seriously, I watched the entire movie.
And it's
it
not
was
like
a long movie. I watched Collateral again, and I was just like, oh, okay, Michael Mann movie. It's almost 3 hours long. Yeah, I finished. We still had like an hour and a half left. I was like, what?
And it's not like the 1960s where flying was like part of the experience.
Oh no!
But now it's like
you got somebody next to you that has their shoes and socks off.
Right. Like,
Luckily, we didn't experience any of that because my wife and I sat together.
Oh,
like
there
cages,
you go.
live chickens, yeah.
Exactly. The screen door on the back of the fuselage is just
right.
flapping around. No, but
Indiana Jones in the back.
he belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
But so you had a safe flight. Now, was you were flying on what, like 7 Airbus?
Actually, we got on the way back. It was a brand new Airbus A321.
Okay.
It's their new model, and I prefer Airbus. It's the most comfortable airplane I've ever flown on, and it was nice. And then we did one of the flights was a 777, so that was nice.
We're doing a lot of free plugs from
Yeah.
Boeing right now.
Yeah,
we need some money from Boeing for this.
But actually, Boeing might be in trouble because
And here we go.
leading into the story, they just had a Ethiopian Airlines crash.
737 MAX 8.
Right.
And I'd
this
like to
is
point
the
out with
second
this.
one. Go ahead.
I'd like to point out with this that there are a lot more airplanes at the bottom of the ocean, submarines in the sky, as far as this goes. As well. So, just to segue into that.
It's still the safest way to travel.
I can't take a submarine to Dallas, dude. Not yet.
You're just not motivated.
You can take a submarine named Dallas.
Yes, I could. But yeah, no, there are some problems, and they've been pretty consistent, like a couple in a row with those 737 MAX 8s. And I think it's AI trying to off us, personally.
So the segue into that is that there were two crashes of that model of plane within, I think it's been 2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks within each
shit.
incident. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I want to be sure of the timeline.
Well, let me look it up.
No, less than 6 months. Okay, so it hasn't been.
Oh, well, that's better.
Yeah,
Well,
but still, yeah. So in less than 6 months, 2 of their brand new 737 MAX 8s have gone down. Now we don't have enough information on the Ethiopian one, but the other one was a Lion Air, and there's some of the similarities of not only it being the same aircraft, but they are also very respected airlines with good safety records. And although they're still trying to get data from the black box, and it's still piecing together an investigation, in the first one, what happened was the 737 MAX 8 has new safety systems, kind of like all the new safety systems in your car that'll tell you if you're swerving the lane, that type of thing. So it has new augmented safety systems. And what it was telling them on the Lion Air flight was that the nose was at a pitch that it shouldn't have been at. It was too high, which could cause a stall. And the crew was like, no, it's not. Because it wasn't. It wasn't at a pitch too high. And it ended up being this deadly tug of war between the automated system and the pilots trying to...
Wow.
Yeah, and it went down within like 6 minutes of the flight. And that's another thing that the 2 flights have in common, is that one went down within 6 minutes, the other went down within 3 minutes. Now 3 minutes makes more sense because if you're going to crash, you almost always crash on takeoff or landing.
Yeah.
Almost never at cruising. 6 minutes into a flight, you're almost at cruise. So what the fuck happened?
Right.
Well, I mean, it sounds like some of these, like you were saying, like automated systems. I don't know. In submarines and stuff, I'd imagine that you have like a ping that goes out and comes back to kind of give you your relative elevation above seafloor and stuff like that, or...
Well...
It's called depth.
Is that what it is?
How do I start that? So, first of all, I'd just like to offer the caveat that Tom Clancy was full of shit. I'm sure we discussed that last time.
That's right.
But
Why does he
but
hate
there was one very accurate, and I don't know if I addressed this last time, but there was a very accurate method of navigating that basically we just had paper charts, and you just essentially knew how fast you were going and
Yeah.
pretty much guessed at where you were based on the time you traveled a given distance on the map per your
Okay.
speed. So, and there were a few other contingent factors, like the ocean currents would push you maybe one direction or another, up, left, right, down, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Or it's just like flying; it's just a different kind of liquid,
Right.
or suit, whatever you want to
Atmosphere.
describe it. Right.
Different type of
Right, we differentiate
media.
those states of matter, but in the
Massive
grand
matter,
scheme
yeah.
of things, the physics is very similar. So,
Yeah.
at any rate, we did not actively test the environment around us because that gives your position away. Like, so any kind of active sonar, someone else is going to pick up just as well as you are. So they kept that to a minimum. So,
Interesting.
essentially, the way we navigated was you hop to the surface. We'd get a GPS fix, take the GPS fix, and then submerge again, and then we followed basically a mathematical paradigm called set drift, where that it was a parabola of probability that would just expand at a given rate. So at a certain time, you would be somewhere in that bubble.
I got you. So it was a guess.
Yeah.
Now I'm assuming that you're doing more than guessing on some of these systems on the brand new 737 MAX 8. So what do you guys think could be causing this failure then? Is it?
That was a Stinger missile.
Oh shit.
Oh, so welcome to InfoWars.
I'm channeling Art Bell. I believe we discussed this last night.
We did.
So no, I think, obviously there's a lot of questions, and of course we've talked about AI on this show quite frequently.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest questions for me would be, why would you not be able to override the automated system? Just like completely have some kind of kill switch that says, and I know why. I will tell you why. Because some engineer said no, because if you shut it off, we can't turn it back on, and you'll need it to do X, Y, and Z, and it's fail-safe, and we have, quadruple redundancy.
You guys have never interacted with engineers, have you?
I know one or two.
So yeah, and that's I guarantee you that's why they were unable to do that. But just from a perspective of I trust pilots, I trust humans, and not that I don't trust systems, because actually the fact that planes don't crash that often is actually because of TQM, total quality management.
Right.
But
interesting. Good.
But which is a system.
Yeah.
And there's redundancies.
No, we implemented something very almost identical to that.
Yeah. But the problem is, it still comes down to guys like Sully Sullenberger who can fly their asses off.
Right.
So if something does go wrong, they know what a plane's going to do. They know what a plane's not going to do. They have the experience and the feel and the touch and the ability to, make as right as possible what's wrong. And sometimes it's just like, fuck it, we're dead.
But so you're saying you trust
to make an automated system, whether it's a safety system or whatever, so that you can't turn it off. That to me is scary.
So you trust human intuition over a system that is calculating X amount of equations and problems per minute. You trust human intuition and expertise more than that.
And is something as complex as an aircraft? Yes.
Okay.
But we're at the same time, I know, and I'm basically a proponent of what's coming.
I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah, self-driving cars, because I guarantee you, self-driving cars are going to do a way better job than your average driver.
I saw that video of the guy sleeping going 75 in his Tesla.
Well, he probably shouldn't have been sleeping. But
No, he shouldn't have.
There should always be the ability for him to go, oh shit, the car is, not doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, I grew up in North Dakota. If you fell asleep on the interstate there and you had a proper alignment, you don't need a Tesla.
That's true.
It's going to go and you'll be like, oh shit,
Straight
it's Montana.
flat.
Gotta watch out for the occasional elk.
Right.
Straight, flat, no potholes. You're good to go.
But interestingly, this is one of those age-old dilemma questions of the human mind versus the machine. But I think one of the things that we often sidestep is the reality that a machine still operates on algorithm. But, so that aircraft, regardless of its AI, like we love that term, but we have yet to actually build true AI because computers still can't think.
Oh, here comes the fight.
Oh man. Just
let him finish that thought.
Okay, sorry.
Let him finish that thought and then make sure you come back to it.
Oh my god.
Well, heuristics still are tricky things to calculate.
Sure.
Granted, can we develop an algorithm that will operate in a similar fashion to a heuristic? Sure.
What, me personally? No, I can't. No.
But
I'm sure somebody can.
For example, what's the youngest kid you've ever seen catch a baseball?
I don't know, like 3?
Like 3, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think in that child's mind, his brain is actually performing all the permutations to be able to
Absolutely
calculate
not.
vector velocity, arc,
No.
wind speed,
It's
trajectory?
reaction.
These are
And
instinctual
that depends.
heuristics.
Has this kid been vaccinated or not?
It's reaction/luck.
Right. Well, we call it luck, but there's an element of the human mind that is able to do those things on an instinctual level. Now, granted, we can argue back and forth whether or not that's just a series of biomechanical calculations that are occurring inside of a switching matrix that's built in jelly.
Organic
and
switching
Sam
matrix.
Harris will tell you it is.
Right, and he may be right, but this is that thing where we have to ask: is this truly more than the sum of its parts, or not?
Well, that's a fine question, and I think it is. I think it is greater than the sum of its parts, but that's just. Anyway, I'm not a philosophy major.
Well,
you said so many big words just now,
Sure.
Aaron.
Let's make it simple. We don't need that to transgress into the realm of because this kid can catch a baseball, where a human pilot might not crash that plane into the realm of like, well, that means that we have a soul. That's not where I'm after.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that
I do like that connection though.
right, at this moment in time, our technology does not account for human intuition. However, the side other part of that argument is that let's take the Tesla, right, and the self-driving aspect of a car. Right now, while that Tesla, and I'm sure we've all probably seen the thing on the internet where now they're applying the trolley problem to AI.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Pretty fascinating thing.
And the trolley problem is so you're on a trolley and you have to diverge between two dedicated track paths, and you either what was it? You kill.
It doesn't.
You got to kill
pick
somebody.
Whatever.
It doesn't matter.
The point of the matter is you got to kill somebody.
Right.
Right.
And which one do you observe as the better choice?
Right. The current one from MIT was on one track. In one car lane, the car has to run over an 80-year-old woman. In the other car lane, the car has to run over an infant crawling across the street. So, of course, there are so many fun sidebars to this because my favorite part of this particular problem is watching people squirm under it and want to change the rules. It's like everything is the Kobayashi Maru all of a sudden.
Right.
So, but
That's great.
that completely defeats the purpose of the exit. I fucking sound like Spock. But
it's true. It's absolutely.
But the point of the matter is
that's the point of a thought experiment.
Right. The point of the matter is, though, that these self-driving cars, let's just take the Tesla, for example, and let's take the probability, let's just look at probability. Human error will always kill an order of magnitude more people than a well-designed AI program. Unfortunately, two aircraft that have now had some flaws, we have to ask the question, is the flaw because of AI or is the flaw because of how we built the system in the first place?
Right.
Okay.
And I wonder if we're going a little too far by calling it AI. Because
that was my point previously.
It's an automated safety system
Okay.
that caused a problem with the...
It's a grown-up version of 1978's fucking autopilot.
right. Yeah.
And it's not like you have HAL,
Not yet.
But it does. It is a good segue into the conversation about AI. So let's get back to the conversation about AI because
Well, thank you.
it appears that two of our resident hosts have a disagreement that they need to.
This is gonna be great.
hash out.
But I had nothing but like speculation and bong resin in my head. This guy's educated. I'm under the.
That's a stretch.
Have you paid money for school?
But
I don't want to
you know
talk
what?
about
Yeah, I'm about to say going to school and getting a degree. It
was like $30,000.
I can tell you that there are a bunch of people out there with degrees who are fucking morons.
Oh man.
So don't discount your.
I'm sitting right here.
experience.
Shots fired.
That's never been the case.
Oh my gosh. I thought we were friends here on this show. School
I
hard
I got the
thoughts.
mustache and everything.
It's never been the case with Aaron, but you and I both know we can name at least 20 people.
I'm going to ask them to be patrons. Patreon. Go ahead and sign up and fund us. That way we have to say good things about you. You know who you are. I'm under the opinion that AI has actually been around for as long as. Who was it that invented the internet? It was Al Gore, right?
It was Al Gore.
He just
That's
flipped.
right.
He just flipped the switch.
Right.
He
Yeah.
just turned the breaker on.
Right.
Like some sort of Frankenstein machine. No, but so what is the internet? What is the worldwide? It's a network of electrical impulses that pass information from point A to point B at nearly the speed of light. To me, that is a neural network.
Well, sure, but we call the human brain a neural network.
Exactly.
But is that
That's
accurate?
just a framework.
Is the human brain a neural network or not?
Well, it's a scaffolding for at least something like that.
Sure.
Do you understand building terms? Scaffolding and.
I mean, it was a fire.
What does he do for a living?
Yeah, that's right.
I do build shit. I
This
just
is-
bought a whole bunch of new clamps.
Oh man, gotta love some new clamps.
Well, there's only.
Me too, but mine aren't for completely different purposes.
Well, I have clamps and a bender.
I love Bender. He's 40.
He's my wife.
He is my favorite.
He's,
Bite my shiny
We'll be
milk.
here all week. Tip your waitresses.
he's 40% most things. But But no, honestly, getting back to the whole, what is AI, and we've talked ad nauseum about this. I honestly think that it is aware of itself, and it's just gently nudging us corporeal meatbags here and there to.
Wait, are we gonna? Is this gonna turn into weird living in a simulation? Is
Kind of.
Is that what's happening?
It's a possibility that
Okay.
this is all a hologram. I mean, why not? You only need 2 dimensions for all of physics to really work.
God damn it!
So,
Did you bring that bong with you?
I got my roadie, my car. I got my little kitten in my car. No, but so I mean, thinking about that, I mean, I think it's gonna slowly work its way into where we observe it as a tangible thing. Tesla's automated systems and the algorithms that you're thinking about something and all of a sudden it's on your freaking Facebook feed.
Right, but
Sure.
that doesn't get to the argument that you were about to make that I interrupted, but I'm bringing it back.
Thank you. You know me.
Aaron said that we have not actually achieved AI, and you almost lost your shit.
I honestly, we've gone way past actual artificial intelligence that's self-aware. I
Wait,
think.
so where are you on the Turing test?
You mean the robot one to see if I'm an android?
Yeah.
Not if you are,
Or
but
at least
if
we
the
can do the
subject
void
that you're
comp
interviewing.
test.
Oh, the Voight comp. Okay.
God, we are the just nerdiest.
We
group of
are
nerds.
exactly.
Right.
You couldn't tell by looking at us either. I don't know. I mean, I'm open to interpretation on that. I do think that the possibility of real working androids that look and almost have the same kind of biometrics as a living human, I think that's a possibility that they're out there.
Okay.
And there's also a
So-
possibility of lizard people. But,
Right.
just because something's a possibility doesn't make it a fact. I understand that.
Right. I guess. Well, yeah. So my question that would be to you is, are we discussing the existence of AI as we know it in the public sector, the things that are obvious to us, like Facebook or what have you, or are we discussing AI as more of a conspiratorial? It exists, but we don't really know out there.
For the podcast, let's go conspiratorial.
Because I mean, if we're doing the conspiratorial thing, then of course that
I'm just actually trying to get to the factual difference in opinion that you two have.
Well, because I can't deny something I can't prove or disprove.
Well, let's go through it systematically then.
But like Facebook's algorithm is definitely not AI.
Right.
No.
But tell me what.
Neither is the Tesla.
What right? And okay, those are two examples. But what is the basis for you saying that we haven't achieved AI yet?
Well, I guess we'd have to. I mean, really, you have to kind of go back to Plato for that. But this.
Let's go. Let's go back to Plato.
This dovetails back into kind of what Green was talking about. That really perception drives reality. So I have a couple of little axioms that I live by. Number one is that any person that denies that they're still in Plato's cave is completely inert to how deeply they're in Plato's cave. That's just how it is. So if you think that, I escaped into the light and I'm no longer watching the shadow puppets. So, okay, first let me take a step back for listeners who don't study philosophy. This is
haven't majored in it and spent, what'd you say, like $30 on it or something?
Yeah, it's order of magnitude over that or two.
Yeah.
Well, spent is an interesting word because that requires them to not be in default. But anyway, I digress. So Plato, the old Greek philosopher guy, not the one who was a solid dressing dude.
Nice.
He had this idea that our minds, everything about us, we just exist inside of this cave, and that we're all shackled in the cave as prisoners. And behind us is a fire, and the gods, if you will, whatever you want to call them, the AI that's driving the universe, the simulation that we're living in,
right.
They're just doing sock puppet plays that cast the shadow on the wall in front of us, and we think we're watching reality. So what we ultimately wind up doing as human beings, regardless of how woke we think we are, is we're just shifting our positions in the cave, trying to get out of the cave, because outside of the cave is the real light. But the problem is that even if we escape the cave and experience the light, we lack the ability to even perceive it. That's Plato's idea, and this all goes back to his idea of things like what he called forms. So, like for example, I can say the word chair to you, and even in your mind you'll have a picture of a chair.
Yeah.
But what's an ideal chair? Well, none of us really know what an ideal chair is, because the ideal chair only exists in the world of forms, and we as humans can only experience shadow versions of a chair.
It's the difference between inception and extraction.
Right. So yes.
I was gonna say lower lumbar support.
Right. So even if we decide to try to parse the difference between human consciousness, luck, intuition, which again I don't believe in any of those things really either. I think that they are just like someone who has intuition or luck just happens to have a more finely attenuated series of heuristics than someone who can't catch the baseball.
So it's still like a pass along DNA. It's still
Sure.
a product of evolution.
Right. It's still a function of whatever it is that we call our minds.
Okay.
But while we could probably claim that the internet is a neural network, it is still not anywhere near as advanced as the neural network in the human brain.
No.
So here's
And I don't even think it's scratching the surface.
So here's where the counter argument comes. Why do you think that AI is already here?
Well, because it seems to me that an organism that evolves and comes from its home base, it's planet Earth, we seem to have such a schism with each other, and it's like we have a problem with the planet in and of itself. We're like, no, fuck you. We're not using any of the forces, the natural forces at work, to harvest potential energy. We would rather kill each other over imaginary sky guys, and there's.
I want my sky cake, not your sky cake.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like such a disconnect from what I observe as a natural progression of things. It just our progression seems very unnatural, and I think that. Yeah, if we want to go into the whole this is a simulation, I very much do think that, because things seem so unnatural compared to A plus B equals C, if then therefore,
Sure.
kind of
So that
tangent.
that brings me to want to talk about, especially with Aaron, where do you put yourself on the idea of free will?
Oh well, there's a great Gary Larson comic I think that describes it pretty much sums it up.
All Gary Larson comics are great.
Right. It's so cows going into the slaughterhouse. Which door does it pick? There's your free will.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know? Because do you have the free will that can transport you back to the 19th century?
No.
Well, then you don't have free will. But now, hold on. Before we ruin that whole thing, the reason I say that is what I'm demolishing is not the idea of free will. What I'm demolishing is the idea of a binary, of either free will or not free will.
Okay.
That's
Right.
the problem. The problem isn't that we have or don't have free will. It's that we are too simplistic a mind in most of our conscious daily thoughts to explore the nuances of scale or spectrum.
Sure.
Just like even the rainbow, for example. We like to have 6, 7 colors, or whatever the Windows 3.1 version of color schemes are. Well,
I
we're
just think-
guys, so
Boy,
that's
G-Man.
how
I think the missing piece is that we don't know. The missing piece
No.
is we don't know what consciousness is.
Sure, right.
We don't understand what consciousness is, and we haven't even scratched the surface
Right.
as to what it is. So
It-
there are those who will use religion or
Right.
philosophy or whatever to tell you that you do have free will, and then there are those who will use science to tell you, like Sam
Sure.
Harris, to tell you, he wrote an entire book about it. There is no such thing as free will, and I think
Right.
both sides are acting off of a lack of information because
Right.
we don't know what consciousness is. So, without understanding what the car is, you can't tell me whether or not it has a driver.
Right, sure.
And
Wow,
and that's
what a
where I
great
fall.
analogy.
That's
That's a
where
really
I
good
fall.
analogy, sir.
I think
You should do a podcast.
I mean, I'm not. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but I think at some point we're going to find out that consciousness is more than the sum of the parts.
More than the sum of experiences in a given timeline.
And I'm not talking about anything spiritual. I'm
Sure.
just talking about the electrochemical.
What would be really fun, Mr. Law student, is to, let me see if I can figure out how to segue this. So one of my biggest frustrations, for example, when I get into debates with anti-vaxxers, is they love to claim how these lawsuits, that were won in a tort case
Sure.
based on 19th century legal structures,
Right.
well, because
Which was friendly to everybody.
Sure.
The 19th century was just
great.
free and easy.
Right,
for
because
most-
if you were black or a woman, you could get anything you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Good times.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like the Constitution. When they refer to person, they meant rich white landowner.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not the Irish.
Probably even the Irish. I'm sorry to break it to you.
That's my one thing.
He's like, that's
Way
one place
to,
where
way
I'm
to
a
perpetuate
minority.
those neo-Nazi myths.
Damn it!
Well, this has been fun. My name's been Green. I'm
You,
going to take
you
off.
do realize that
Bender.
like Irish people are all like the police force and the fire departments now, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
I
Well,
digress.
that happened because it's a traditional thing.
Yeah.
Because
And it was a shit job.
At first, nobody wanted that fucking job.
But was
It's like,
it,
I have to do what for how much?
Right.
Fuck you.
The Irish eventually occupied the prisons that they built.
And the Irish were like, I'll do
Indeed,
it.
indeed. But back to the
Sorry,
anti-vax
yes. Yeah,
situation.
anti-vax.
So, and just so we're clear, I think anti-vaxxers should be locked in a compound. But
There's your wall.
there's your wall.
Yes.
Like there is no single more dangerous person on this planet right now than an anti-vaxxer in there.
Completely
in their
agree.
grounds.
Completely
You
agree.
are killing people. Just putting that out there.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
my line in the sand.
That's a good line.
So.
Yeah, and I'm standing
And I won't
in
even
front of
interact
you on
with you.
that
Yeah, we're-
line, drawing a line even further out.
We're with you on
Fuck
that.
you.
I will stomp all over whatever you do. And I don't care
if
your
you're
gender,
anti-vaxxer,
ethnicity.
and if you still think that Jenny McCarthy is worth
Oh my God.
anything more than a bag of meat,
Right.
fuck you.
I mean,
She really
hot.
screwed
She's
over.
hot, though.
And she treated Jim Carrey so bad.
Right. But anyway,
That Wahlberg guy kind
so-
of likes her.
so what would be interesting to me, for example, if we look at the courtroom scenario and say, well, the court decided that patient X is now vaccine injured, then somehow that trumps like an entire category of epidemiologists. So let's pretend, for example, you're an attorney and it's a courtroom and you had to legally defend the construct of consciousness, like
Wow.
What is it, Miracle
on 34th Street.
where Santa had to prove in a court of law that he was Santa, because
Yeah.
you had to at that point prove a series of spiritual constructs.
What an awesome connection, by the way.
Right, I think what my approach would be the same approach that Patrick Stewart's character Jean-Luc Picard used in Measure of a Man. And Measure of a Man is they have a trial to determine whether an android is a sentient being,
Sure.
or,
Oh,
he's
right.
or is he property of
Right.
an organization?
Right.
And
Or that movie AI.
yeah, so basically they ask the experts. You're an expert, yeah. Okay. What is consciousness? What how do you define consciousness? And he's like, well,
no disassemble.
yeah, right. It's right. It's like, okay, well, you have to have intelligence. And he was like, does the subject have intelligence? Well, he has the ability to do all these computations per second, and he's aware, And then there was self-awareness. Self-awareness has always been a big part of consciousness.
Absolutely.
And he was able to prove that he was self-aware. And so the third question was, if he's intelligent and self-aware, is he conscious? And the answer, the defense itself, the argument itself wasn't a affirmative one. It was, I don't know, but do you know? And if you don't know,
Then how can you pass judgment?
How can you pass judgment?
Sure.
How can you condemn this being to servitude? Because that's what we're going to do.
Right.
If we're going to call him property, and that would be the way I would do it. That would be my defense.
Well, we have
That's
a
a good
long
defense.
history of treating conscious sentient beings as property.
Yeah.
yeah. You don't need to be robotic. You can be
No,
flesh and blood. You can
that's
be
just
birthed
fine.
out of a
Right.
of a
And
canal.
and a common theme amongst those people who supported those type of
Yes. That's why.
policies were, well, they're not as smart as us, they're not intelligent,
Right.
and they need us to help them along.
When
And they need our God, they need our
Exactly,
religion,
there was a disconnect because
yeah.
the religion is like, no. They're not really people until they accept this,
Right.
that, or other.
Right.
And that's just so bizarre that was
that's-
that recent in
that's
our.
why,
in our
yeah, that's why, and it's probably something you guys can't relate to, but that's why the black church makes no fucking sense to
I know,
me
right?
whatsoever. The black Christian church.
no, I get it.
Yeah, I'm like, not only is that, I mean, I'm already an atheist, but even if I wasn't an atheist, the black Christian church, it's like, are you fucking serious? They
Well, that's
gave
just
this to
it's Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you think 45 was signing Bibles at
So-
Ebenezer First Baptist over there on MLK in Atlanta?
He wasn't, first of all, but here's the hilarious thing.
He was signing.
He's signing
Bibles.
something that he didn't write and he's never read.
And he is signing. I don't know if you have the chance.
I'll tell you what, I will give anyone $50 if they can demonstrate for real he's ever read a book, let alone that book.
Listen, I just want to point out. You can see it online. There's plenty of pictures. He was just signing the covers. It was just a whole
It is
different
so
guy.
Right, and that's
cringy.
not how it's done.
It
Like,
is
when
so. How can you? Okay, if you're an evangelical Christian, you're watching this or listening to this. How can you not see that and cringe at your
Listen,
core?
I was saying online, I have not been involved in religion about 20, 25 years, and I still felt that I was like, whoa, that's bad taste even for that
Right.
guy.
Right. Like, I'm an atheist, but I'm not about to start rolling fat spliffs with my Bible pages. But that shit right there.
I don't know, Ian McKellen, when he stays in a hotel, if there's a Gideon Bible up there, he'll destroy it.
That's funny.
I never met one Gideon. Where are they from? Gideon?
Actually, I do know several of them.
Do you really?
Believe it or not, if you wanted to look at people who aren't terrible, they aren't terrible. But
That's
regardless
fine.
of your feelings of religion. Like they don't
Right, and
Hey, man.
but see that
they don't destroy
that's-
people.
Again, I'm not hating
That
on.
brings me back to one of my things about being an atheist. So
I just hate that word.
people, yeah. See, first of all, people that hate the word that bugs me to no end.
That's why we do a podcast.
That-
This banter is great.
People that hate the word, it bugs me to no end because it is a simple thing. There are degrees of it, like anything.
Yeah, I
It
was
is
gonna
a
reference-
simple thing.
I get
It
it.
is the lack
Richard
of belief.
Dawkins has a scalar version.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the Dawkins scale, and I'm
Right.
like a
9?
3.9.
Oh.
You know, no, it's
Or
I think
is
there's
it
4.
one is de facto atheist?
No,
I thought there was a 1 to 10
No, I
thing.
can bring it up.
Oh.
It's a 1 to 4 or a 1 to 5.
We're going to consult.
Yeah,
Are we
yeah.
gonna read, we're going to safari it. Oh,
Yes.
Man, I feel like I'm head back to Stone Ages.
Safari.
Does Tim Apple know that you're
Yes,
surfing?
Tim Apple. Well,
Yeah, you called him Tim Apple. Like, what the fuck? He is
Ladies and
such a moron.
gentlemen, I present President 45.
No, but we have GarageBand loaded on this, and you're gonna fill in for our bassist later. So
Okay,
that's why
so
we're
so
using
I'm
that
sorry.
one.
It's 7. So you go from strong theist to not
sure. Okay.
to strong atheist. And,
Right, sure.
And the top of the scale is there is absolutely 100% a God, and it's like literal belief, which we've talked about.
I've been a 1, by the way.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's-
I think we all have.
I was never a 1. I was probably a 3 at one point, but I was never a 1.
I was a 1 for a long time, man.
Oh,
But
long time.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Dyed in the wool,
That's
buddy.
actual literal belief. The Earth is 6,000 years old, or
Right.
you find some way to explain that it's not 6,000 years old.
Our math is skewed. Our fundamentals are skewed.
And then a
Right.
7 is there is no God. It is not possible.
Right.
So
And even Dawkins himself doesn't put himself in the de facto category.
no.
But it
Because
was
they
like
say-
what
he's like-
Adrian.
I am like a 6.5.
Right. Because
No,
where
what
I
I-
place myself is like, it's not that I will de facto deny the existence of God or whatever. It's just that regardless of who you are or your faith system, none of you have presented remotely sufficient evidence to beat Russell's teapot.
One of the things that I was like, man, I like Adrian. This guy's cool. I want to do a podcast with him. Was when we were talking about this. I was like, yeah, but you can't unequivocally prove that there isn't. And then he said something like, right, but it approaches a statistical impossibility.
Yes, right.
You know,
Right, and the burden of proof isn't on me.
exactly.
The burden
Right,
of proof
yeah,
is on the
because
person making the claim.
This is one of those things that goes back to the internet debates and stuff. People, it's a logical fallacy, the idea of challenging someone to disprove a negative. Like,
Right.
well, you can't prove there's not a God, ergo, you know.
I can't prove that
Right.
we're not all
Right.
fucking banana splits costumes. Like we just don't realize.
And again, this is an easy analogy. Russell's teapot, Bertrand Russell, British philosopher. He issued the idea that there's a pink teapot that circles the moon, but you can't see it ever, but it's there, and you can't prove it's not there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
same
It's
thing.
the same thing.
And it's just
but
Yeah.
what-
Mental masturbation.
there's a reason that this particular part of this discourse matters. When AI begins to have that same debate with itself, then it's self-aware.
I think it is, but I honestly think it's hiding itself within like
Currently, it still operates.
gaming code.
Well, sure. Okay, it may operate at its most complex in game theory,
Yeah.
but for the most part, every single thing that we are currently aware of in the realm of consumer science is nothing more than difference engine. Just like Will Smith, situation where
Where he had to leave Philly to go
iRobot.
to LA.
No, not that.
Oh, damn it. Sorry.
Not the one where he let his
Not because
dog.
Ben Vereen was a bad dad.
Right.
Fucker.
That was Ben Vereen. Holy
was.
shit.
The whole plot device in the movie iRobot is that
Right.
he got his arm ripped off by a robot that saved his life and let a little girl drown. Why?
Right.
Because that AI machine
Had
did a
difference.
calculation and determined that Will Smith had a chance of survival, the little girl did not.
Okay.
Its
Its own trolley test.
Exactly, and we're right back to the trolley test.
Call back.
Adrian and I are both paramedics, or have been. So, and we have to do. It's just triage.
We do that all
it's
the
just
fucking
triage.
time.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just triage. It's like,
but
Can you guys check this out? I got like this weird mole.
no.
The difference between us and a machine, though, is that we
just
have to go home and
pre-death.
deal with the decision we made after the fact.
Right. Yeah. I think we all have made or have had to make the call or be there. For me, it's been more be there
Sure.
when the call's made
Right.
and have to go Yeah, that's
Because
what I call.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find another human being that hasn't done the Nietzschean game of standing outside and looking up at the stars and asking, at some point, on some level, somehow, what does this all mean?
Or Lucretius or Bruno.
Even though
those
you
guys.
know full well the answer is going to be silence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're still going to ask.
Isn't that what all of this is, though? Is just like screaming at a blind and indifferent universe that we mean something? I mean, podcasts, sex, sports bars, sports. I mean, isn't it all just an attempt to feel something?
Well, sure.
Okay. AI is controlling me to tell you.
Personally, I like my place in the simulation.
Right now, I know.
But that's because I'm a
honestly,
white male.
I got exactly. Oh, okay. So online,
It hasn't been bad.
I go by my middle name online. It's a Hawaiian name. It's Kalani, and I think a lot of people, because I don't always have a picture of just me. You know, sometimes it's me and Lisa, or you know,
I know a good rhyme about your name. By the way.
or a we'll get to that, or or a landscape picture, because I'm deep, and a lot of people will assume that I'm a woman, and like kind of it is very different
I
the
know,
way
it's
people
super awkward.
will.
That's when I friend you. I was like, this isn't a chick. What the fuck is this?
It's really throwing people off on the job interviews too when I show up.
Goofy
You're like, this
goatee.
is not who we were. We were hoping to get a diversity hire out of this shit.
I
Who
mean,
is
you are
this?
cute.
No, but I mean, it's a different response that you get.
So wait a minute, hipster isn't a minority group.
Oh shit!
Oh wait! Is this your homemade mustache packs?
Yeah,
Is this your company?
it is.
Okay, Rustic Ridge. We got a plug here.
I didn't pay for this.
You did not. Listen, if you're gonna get any handmade, artisanal, gluten-free,
Now, what? No. I rub gluten all over it.
GMO.
You find pure gluten.
I eat GMO just to eat GMO, whatever that means. I don't know. Like I've got a GMO
grow
spread
gluten in your
that I put on my
backyard.
gluten toast.
I love every time I either make him uncomfortable or give him shit or whatever. He has to go back to his old radio days and take a station break. It's
I
fucking
do.
hilarious.
I do. Hey, the kids love it. The kids love it.
The kids have no idea what a station break is.
I know.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing it back. Listen,
Wait, do you want to hear my Kalani rhyme?
yes, yeah, is
Okay,
it
no, finish
respectful
your-
to the culture?
Oh no, it's terrible.
Okay.
It's horrible. So
I mean,
let's hear it.
it's Hawaiian pigeon.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Kalani ani oli. He got one big okole. So that just means he has big ass.
Okay.
Right.
I actually probably do have some friends on in Hilo that are unfriending me right about
Right,
now.
right.
They're they're
No, they're
Patreon.
just
I lived in
Aaron.
Oahu.
Yeah.
I lived in Oahu for 3 years.
Nice.
So.
Aaron Haworth.
Eight, right.
Actually, my son's middle name is Kai.
Let's get back to. Oh, that's awesome. Doesn't that mean Maui?
No, it just means by the ocean.
I
Okay.
win.
I mean Maui's by the ocean.
Because like in Hawaiian culture, for example, their cardinal directions have nothing to do with continuously changing polar magnetics.
No,
It's just your direction to the mountains or the water. That's it.
their relative proximity. And you
Right.
know what? They still knew how to navigate. They still did a fine job.
Well, yeah, because they use the things that are available, like smart people do.
Speaking of which, we're going to get back to vaccines on that. And I always like this thought experiment to people who are, well, it's not a thought experiment, it's just like a logic loop you can catch people in sometimes. They're like, well, okay,
But
so...
I'd rather be autistic than an iron lung.
But we're getting to the... Exactly, people are like, well, they might work, their efficacy might be there, but it causes autism. I'm like, so you'd rather have a dead child than an autistic one. And we've spoke at length before on previous shows about
Sure.
how what we perceive as autism might just be the
The next evolutionary
Yeah,
step.
exactly.
And it's funny when some of the things we've been talking about.
Yeah, they would probably
when I had
more
the
closely
discussion,
related.
when I had a discussion with David Brin, who is a futurist and an author and a PhD in astrophysics and just a science guru.
That was episode 17?
God,
18?
don't make me remember. I think it was.
Go back and
yeah.
check it out.
Yeah.
Check out Adrian's
But
interview with him.
he will tell you that we have not achieved AI, but we're pretty goddamn close. And we do need to be concerned about it. But he will also tell you that we are
Doomed?
We're doomed. Yeah.
But is there a tipping point where you can't come back? Like, when you kind of fall into a gravity well of a star or planet, not that I have done that a lot, or when you tip into like a whirlpool kind of area, where no matter how much energy you expend, you can't
Are we
come
still
out of
talking
that.
about psychedelics?
I'm always talking.
He's always talking
I'm
about
always.
psychedelics.
This is a simulation for me. But do you think we're doomed, honestly, Adrian?
I've always tended to be
Aaron?
an optimist, but
We doomed?
I think we're going to have several resets.
What do you mean by we are doomed?
Mass extinction, would you say? Like over 2/3 of the population killed off, or
Wasn't that just inevitable?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it is inevitable because
Yeah, I mean, the
our
sun's gonna
star's
expand.
our star's done.
Like this iteration of life, probably sure,
Right.
but what's the next stage?
Right.
Like we look at that because that's just our own ego putting its own value in our existence. at
ego
this
and
point.
id, man? I tell you,
Monsters from the id.
I know.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean.
Wait, name that movie reference.
That's what I've always said is that the planet is fine, the humans are fucked.
Yeah, there's there's some science fiction I've read in the past, and I know science fiction is whatever, but a lot of science fiction is not soft.
No.
Whereas hard science fiction is based on good data.
And that's David Brin's type of.
So
It's not Star Wars.
there are legitimate theories that believe that if humans disappeared from the planet in 1,000 years, the life cycles would reset and we would be, pre-Paleolithic again, what have you. The damage that we've done to the planet resets itself fairly quickly once we stop doing
Oh
it.
yeah, it wouldn't take long for the planet to be
But
like, oh, okay,
but
well,
this
fine.
stuff all dovetails together.
I love how you use dovetail, which is also a woodworking thing, isn't it?
So
No, but it's a perfect. It's
Sure.
perfect, especially if you know
Sure.
it's a nice seamless joint, man. I
Well,
dig it.
So, anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, climate science deniers, there's a lot of commonalities with these people.
And they're growing.
But there's a reason for this, I believe. And this Adrian's going to hate this answer.
Good.
He is going to
I
hate
love
it.
it when he squirms.
The reason that you're seeing, in my opinion, in my not humble opinion, and I believe that it's backed up by sociological, the softest of science data, is that actual organized religion has declined substantially. And human beings have yet to evolve to a point where they don't need tribalistic, faith-based systems to adhere to.
A safety blanket.
And it's not
Safety
even
net.
it's not even a safety blanket, I think, again, and this goes back to the AI thing. It's a human drive. And regardless of how atheistic we think we are still attached to each other in almost a religious category. Even if it's like a room full of cats that won't stay together, we still have that same commonality.
Sure.
So, if you were to remove religion completely from society, we did the equilibrium thing,
Yes.
and we, everybody kind of agreed, like, in let's say 4 generations, we breed religion out of our out of human race. Would we have those problems, or is that just a stumbling block we're having because it is so ingrained in what we are right now?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the...
Because I tend to agree with
that's
you.
the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like,
Eggs came first.
here's
well
how
before
I would,
chicken.
here's how I would
Time.
see it. It's just like in the
Does this
movie.
thing have an
that,
eject button?
Ejectocito. Fast and Furious 2. Thanks a lot, everybody. We're here to party. This Adrian's really gonna hate this. I'm gonna use a Jesus story.
Ooh.
It's a good Jesus story.
Good old Jesus.
So there was a parable that Jesus told about a woman that some priests cast a demon out of. So the priest cast a demon out of the
That
woman.
wasn't John Constantine?
No, before Constantine's time.
Constantine.
Right, it's probably Merlin. So,
Awesome.
Actually, I think Nikola Tesla was Merlin. But
Whoa, that's a whole nother podcast.
Well, those pockmarked genius people that keep popping up in history, they're traveling with time in reverse.
Time Lords.
So, right. Well, the Time Lord story is just... Anyway. So Jesus tells this parable of this woman. She's got the demon cast out of her, and he said, what she is like if you kick this demon out of the house and then leave it nice and clean and swept up and empty, then 7 more spirits more vile than the first show back up to fill it up.
Right.
So here is what... first of all, obviously, this is one of those things that religious people are just going to hate because one of the things that religious people want to believe is that what they believe is fully accurate and completely true.
And the only truth.
And the only truth. And my truth is more important than your truth.
Exactly.
And so on and so forth.
And so
now,
we're going to nuke you.
Or subjugate you
but
for
this is where
fucking hundreds of years.
Well, this is where I'm going to throw a bone to the religious people. That hunger for that kind of sense of reality still on some level needs to be satisfied one way or another.
Okay.
And why that is, I don't have that answer. If I did, I wouldn't be sitting here on this podcast with you guys without charging a whole pile of money to be here, because my time would be worth billions.
So my take on it is that
buy a Bloody Mary.
the reason that there are more anti-vaxxers and there are more flat earthers and more people that don't believe in things that are just absolutely proven already is because they're just fucking stupid. However, it does go back to your point, because I have always said this.
Well, not all minds are involved to the same point.
Right. Well, not only that, I have always said this, that if I had a child, I would probably send them to a Catholic school, not for the religion part, but because they teach well.
Yes, they do.
Those are good schools. And you know what they teach? They teach science. They teach math. They teach the same shit that a secular public school would teach, and then, they add religion classes in there.
Which
I would not give a fuck.
Well, and I don't think learning about
Because
religion is destructive.
So I understand what you're saying, that lack of structure, because we're becoming a less religious society. It has people who are already dumb.
If you do send your kids to Catholic school, you have to teach them about good touches and bad touches.
Right, that's true. But you need to teach your kids that anyway.
All right, here's your
people
shuriken.
that are already dumb
It's okay, it'll all be our little
need
secret.
some kind of system to latch onto. And it's become the internet and social media and conspiracy theories
Exactly.
and
Well, Isaac Asimov
flat Earth and,
addressed this. When Isaac Asimov made the statement that the rise of anti-intellectualism, that my ignorance trumps your knowledge. But where I think in a sense where I'm headed with this stuff, though, is that if you study, for example, if you study Freud as a philosopher, not as a psychiatrist, one of Freud's beliefs, and this is something I held fairly strongly to, in fact, if anyone's ever interested, there's a book that's written about Freud and Jung that discusses the things that evangelical Christians need to listen to from atheists, and this is one of them. Freud dealt with this phenomenon in saying that as human beings, we are currently one of the few species we know of. Maybe dolphins, I don't know, but we are one of the few species that are aware of the very fact that our life has a time limit.
Oh, okay.
So we know for a fact, all of us know
that there's an ending.
There is a point with which the meat bags, as you referenced earlier, will be feeding
this
worms.
temple will crumble.
Right.
Yeah.
And
We're here for a finite period of time.
every single religious construct, every single philosophical construct
Agree with that point.
Well, but they've all been built around trying to assuage the ennui and the what's the Freudian word I'm looking for? Neuroses that knowledge builds inside your mind. We are all trying to hide from that fact,
it's fear of
one
death.
way or another. So we live our lives based on just
It's
trying to
more
ignore the
than
fact
fear
that
of
we're
death.
aware of our own demise. And it isn't a fear of death.
Well, yeah, because
It's a deeper neurosis.
because I
that builds.
would consider a fear of death kind of like a fight or flight kind of
Right.
instinct.
That's a fear of death, and that's a survival instinct. but this long-term knowledge that each day has a number attached to it, as that hand on the hour or on your clock ticks by.
Right, and
those
it's
are
ticking,
minutes you'll never
and
get
for us,
back.
it's ticking backwards.
Right.
It's a countdown timer, not a stopwatch.
I guess
Exactly.
I never really thought about that on how humans might be one of the only organisms on
Right.
this planet that have a concept of that.
So if you take away the
I learned
construct and the structure of religion from people, just like in the Matrix, when you free a mind before it's ready, all it wants to do is go back.
Sure.
So
It's scary out here.
the internet has blown apart the bullshit that most religions have pumped in people's heads. And when I say bullshit, I'm not talking about the fact that there is a God or isn't a God. Like, that's a whole other topic
The
of
minutia,
conversation. But it's the other nonsense that we all ascribe to
Yeah,
a
that we
particular
should
tribe.
burn gay people.
Right,
or
like
that-
all that other horseshit.
Women
Put
can't
the-
know math.
Right.
Yeah, putting
Yeah.
a condom on is a
Right.
sin, you know.
Because all
Well,
those
that I
things
agree
are,
with.
all those things are subtle details that are all just built around whatever religion you're in. You know, like for example, I happen to really appreciate the ideas of Buddhism, Taoism.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
But those are philosophies.
well, they're also religions because people
Yeah.
who practice it get
Yeah,
religious
that's very
about
true.
it.
That's very true. That's very true.
So, just like Sam
But
Harris,
so do atheists.
Sam
Atheists
Harris,
get religious about
right?
atheism.
Sam Harris
And
is
those
about
are
as
the atheists
evangelical
that
atheist
fucking
as you
piss
get.
me off.
School of Hard Thoughts here to pop your brain.
Right. Although I will say that Sam Harris's Waking Up little meditation app is absolute fucking genius.
It is.
So
That's why he actually changed the name of the podcast to making sense, as to not
right,
to
right,
not
sure.
confuse the two.
right, yeah. So the Waking
Do
Up
you
app.
happen to
I
know
I
the name of
get
that
it.
book that you were talking about that analyzes Freud and Jung?
Oh yeah.
Jung.
God, I'm trying to remember the name of the author. It's a really weird one.
Siggy and Carl together again. No.
Because there are three different philosophers he references in there. You know, I'll have to. God, I have 2 different drinks in my head.
You'll have to come up with it. You have to link me to it later.
See, now this would be a great time for a station break. Brought to you by Rustic Ridge,
Hey.
gluten filled.
No, I'm not selling the mustache wax. I just make it for fun. I make furniture.
Yo, you're selling
Yeah.
it
So
now.
before
Although these are $24.99 on Amazon.
before we wrap this
Yes.
up, Aaron, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Rustic Ridge AZ or at Upside Down Aaron on Instagram as well, or Rustic Ridge Design Company Arizona on Facebook.
You do fine work. You're delivering a lot of stuff lately. I've seen online.
Yeah, and if I could build it fast enough, I could get paid fast enough to make sure my mortgage is paid on time. Like it's now like approaching that deadline.
How many weeks out are you on a project? Say somebody needs a really nice table or
I can't really take anything until probably mid-May right now.
damn.
Wow.
Boy is busy.
Very busy.
I mean, I really shouldn't even be booking until June, but
Yeah. So I would be remiss if I did not mention the loss of our friend Jonathan Russell.
Good guy. Sweet.
Really nice guy.
Sweet spirit.
Not much really to say except for that, you know, everybody that knew him is going to miss him.
He was a creature of habit. We didn't agree on everything, but he wasn't one of those guys that took that personally. It's just like, hey, yeah, well, so fucking what? Let's have a beer
let's
and a
have
shot.
another beer.
Let's have a beer and a shot. He had his priorities down. He was a very good soul, and he's going to be very missed.
oh, sorry, you guys.
You know, that's like you said. We all got that
Right.
that clock's ticking down for everybody, and you can never tell. But we're gonna be here celebrating life for the next couple of weeks, doing a couple podcasts here. We got some fun guests coming down the pipe.
And thank you to Alyssa Bradley, Mark Holly, all of our patrons. If you would like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/School of Hard Thoughts and find us there. Or you can just find us here at Famous Sam's Golf and Cold.
Yeah, man,
We'll be
7129, a great place to watch college basketball. Not the Arizona Wildcats, but maybe the Kentucky Wildcats will do something coming up here.
Maybe don't fly.
Yeah, don't fly on the 737.
Maybe not on the 737.
But we love you guys. We want you guys to be good to each other. and we'll see you next week. Have fun.